it's such a cyclical issue, and a lot of it comes down to money. A lot of it comes down to money. We know that African American people are incarcerated at much higher rates for the same crime, the same criminal history as a white person. And once you're in this cycle, it is so difficult to get out. And, we're working with these guys week in and week out, and it's like, I'm trying to convince them to get a typical job that I know is going to be terrible, right? Like, you're going to work in a warehouse that is hot and they're yelling at you and maybe dangerous, or working in fast food or something that really doesn't challenge you or speak to your humanity at all. It's difficult to convince someone they are worth saving. We have to believe it first, and then we convince them that they have value left. Rates of depression when people get out are very high. So if someone approaches them to get back into the lifestyle, and they're making $14, $12 an hour at Taco Bell, where they're getting screamed at, but they used to be a lawyer, they used to be a doctor, they used to be a carpenter, they're building something, they used to be a chef, they were creating something, right? So most people select jobs that they cared about at one point, right, that they're good at. And when they come out, they cannot return to those fields usually. So if someone offers you $10,000 in a day versus $14 an hour, and you still can't make the rent,
right?
It's not that we agree that this is the path they should take, but it's understandable why people get back in the lifestyle.
Two things I have. I don't know, this is kind of off top. Well, it's along the same line. But have you seen the new show Unprisoned?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So it's this, I forget the actress' name, but her father, he was incarcerated like most of her life, and he ends up getting out of prison, living with her. And so it kind of follows their life together, and it basically exactly what you said, like he's trying to do good, like really turn his life around, really prove to his daughter that he is, going to do what he says, and that he means well, and that he's not going to go back into, I think he was a drug trafficker dealer before.
Sure.
And you just kind of follow his path, and it's just like exactly what you said. It's so difficult for him because he was working at or he couldn't get a job. He's a chef, or he can cook.
Yeah.
He was trying to get a job at this Olive Garden, but when they found out he was, had a record, then they're like, sorry. So then he got a job at the thrift store, but then the thrift store guy wasn't treating, people right. Then he started he was trying to be an entrepreneur and started, all of this stuff. And then it just keeps falling flat on his face. And then at the end of the series or the season, he runs into his old buddies, and, he moves out of his daughter's place. And then you're like, oh, he's just gonna go back into what he knows, because that's all.
What would you like him to do?
Yeah. So I really felt like, it really helped me understand, the cycle, and what, again, not condoning what they've done in the past, but right, if we really want to uplift and create a society where we can come back and contribute into our society, we're not doing a good job of that. And then the second thing thought that I had was for victims who also, even if they're say young adult victims of sex trafficking, right? Again, it's kind of almost a similar path. They have a record. They don't have any education. It's hard for them to find, employment, find a place to live, things of that nature. They have also trauma that they're dealing with. So what happens with them?
I mean, I think an interesting perspective is sometimes I'll get a client throughout their lifespan. So, I had a client when they were 4, 5, 6, and then I don't see them for a while, and then I see them, 15, 16, and then I see them, 20, 21. So for whatever reason, they're coming back, right?
Okay.
And one of the stories that sticks out to me is about a victim. She was Filipino. So culturally, There is no chatting at all. There is no sex education. Couldn't even name her body parts to me. Really could not.
Not even in her own like native tongue?
No. She was American.
Oh, she was American. Okay.
But her culturally Filipino.
Okay.
Her family's from the Philippines. You know, calls it her no-no area and a flower, things like that. The problem with using those terms is that it keeps those areas of our body secret, and they don't need to be a secret. I'll come back to that. Anyway, she's Filipino, culturally. She was born in the U.S., couple siblings. Mom remarries, right? She is sexually assaulted by her stepfather for years, okay? Years and years in the closet, like literally in the closet, thousands of times. But she has no words for what's happening. Her mother has never talked to her about menstruation, body part names, sex. She doesn't even know what her body parts are for, right? So she doesn't go to her mom. She's scared. Plus, the perpetrator said, I'll kill you, right? Wow. I'll kill you and your mom. So a child is never going to risk their mother because they believe the perpetrator, right?
Yes.
That's another thing with parents. I tell my children, it doesn't matter who it is, I will believe you. Saying that ahead of time, just so that it's in their brain that, you know, right. I could be believed, right?
Yeah.
If I came to it, I would be believed. So many perpetrators as part of grooming say, no one will believe you anyway. Remember when you got in trouble for stealing that candy? No one's going to believe you. So she had no one to talk to. Very shy, quiet kid. Very internal and just, you know, head down, doesn't get in the way, which is appropriate for culture, but also a sign of being an abuse victim. So it's hard to tell. She grows up. Maybe she's like 12 or 13 at this point. Before she even had her first period, she was pregnant.
Oh my gosh.
By her stepfather. So, terrified, didn't even know how babies got into bellies, so didn't realize that the assaults could result in pregnancy. And because she had never had a period, she didn't know anything about ovulation or, you know, it was a complete mystery to her. After some education, it got reported because she was pregnant, right?
Yeah.
Mom acknowledged knowing but didn't know what to do because she was not an American citizen. So mom acknowledged that she had lots of children, nowhere to go, doesn't speak the language, even though her children do, she does not, right? Felt really disempowered. Child wanted an abortion. She was 12.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, inappropriate to be procreating at that point. They said no. Her parents were very religious. You will have this baby. Had the baby. Drops out of school. 16, 15. I think she went for a little bit. 16, 15. Meets a man. I'm going to save you. I love you. You are smart and beautiful and funny, and I can't believe people would do that to you, and I'm going to raise that baby like my own, and I love you, and all the things she's been dying to hear. And she's smart. But smart is different than emotionally empty. And all of those things felt so nice to hear. And then he started trafficking her. Where is she going to go? She has a child. She is 17, not even an adult yet. She becomes trafficked. It's quite difficult. Right? She doesn't have a lot of social skills. Mental illness is starting to set in with depression, anxiety, right? Having children is quite difficult. So if you're a child raising a child, you have low impulse control, low frustration tolerance. You didn't want the baby in the first place because your intention was not to become pregnant or even to have sex and then to be forced to keep the baby, right? So that's like trauma in its own. She told me that when she was birthing the child, the only thing she could think about was her perpetrator. Oh my God. So like, you know, birthing a child is so difficult as is, but for most people, it's a wonderful experience or it's going to be, right? They're eventually going to get the prize. But if you didn't want to in the first place, and the entire birthing process, you're thinking of your trauma, how closely do you think she's going to bond to that baby?
Right.
Who was needing to nurse. But nursing is from nipples, which is a sex organ, which was part of her abuse. So she was not going to be nursing. Doesn't bond. That child is now getting in the way, right? Because she's going to be in love with this person. They're going to, all the things. They're going to design clothes and design music and these kind of entrepreneurial ideals. Starts getting trafficked. She can't leave. Doesn't even know if she wants to leave. Loves him. Thinks she loves him. This is just a way for our family to get money. He took care, and you can hear her, I could hear her parroting his words to her.
Wow.
In my opinion. Well, he supported us in the very beginning when we didn't have anything. So it's really my responsibility to go out there and earn the money. And if he could, he would. But people don't want men, and people want young women like me. And so it's really important that I contribute. Right? And you know how she started contributing was finding friends. So she could stop being pandered if she would bring people.
Yeah.
So she went to adult education. You know who's at adult education? Other people who've had really sad lives.
Yeah.
Right? They're not even adults sometimes. They're like kids that can't be in typical school for whatever reason. And so then she assists him in finding people who are down on their luck, don't have support systems, maybe don't speak the language, low income. That's a typical story. So I understand people are mad at her for victimizing others. They are mad at her for not giving the care to her child that people think that the child deserves, which, fine. But if you hear their story from start to finish, it's so understandable. It's like, yeah, of course. Of course she was not going to let go of the one person that she thought was kind to her. We were all in love, right? Sillily. We get that oxytocin when we're in love.
Yeah.
It's that very deep, strong chemical. We only get oxytocin in life from nursing, new relationships, sex, and drugs. So if you have the chemical of oxytocin and you are from a place of trauma, that's a great feeling. You're not going to give that up. That feeling is so good.
And that emotional bond is so hard to break.
Well, she really believed, I have to contribute. This is the best way to get the most amount of money quickly. And she's serious.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then as a clinician, my job is to say...
So she didn't think she was a victim of anything.
She knew she was a victim as a child.
Okay.
She got that, but she blamed herself. So, we do an activity called percentage pie. So we, have a chart and they get to mark what percent was their fault of the abuse, what percent was the mom's fault, what percent was... It's just to see where the child's at, or anyone's at, really. And the amount that people give themselves as their fault is astounding to me. And her fault was not yelling loud enough, not joining a sports team, because if she had a sports team, she wouldn't have been home alone in the mornings when she was offended. Right? So it's just these things that are not connected at all. But it's easier to think that you made a poor choice by not joining sports than to think your mother knew and did not come for you. Most people will choose putting the blame on themselves because the idea that their caretaker that represents the world, right? Your caretaker represents the world to you because you don't know the world. You only know these adults that you know. If that's what you think the world is, it's much easier to say, I did something bad, I'm bad. Not my mom is bad. Not someone didn't love me. Not the world is chaos. That's really an uncomfortable thought. So most people blame themselves.
Yeah, I do find that is kind of like one of the indicators, right? Like a lot of shame and guilt surrounded by these victims.
Yeah, I think there's shame and guilt because they, quote, didn't protect themselves, right? Like, well, why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you fight back? Why, right? What were you wearing? What did you say to him? Why did you leave the front door open? Like, we have cases, I mean, they're rare, but someone will leave the front door open, a stranger enters and assaults someone, and they're like, it's my fault because I didn't lock the door. It's like, right, but you've been in and out of your house hundreds of thousands of times. No one has ever followed you in and assaulted you. Like, there's no precedent for that. So it's not your behavior of locking or unlocking the door is completely unrelated to that person's decision to enter it and do what they do once they enter it. Nothing magic happened when you didn't lock that door. It didn't send out a signal to send someone in. So just, again, being realistic about how much control we really have over things. And I think a lot of the shame is starting at ground zero, meaning if you can't name your body parts, how are you going to tell someone something is happening to them? I mean, we're not giving words. We're not giving them the words they need. I've told you about the story about the cookie. We had a girl going to school for years. My uncle's touching my cookie. He's eating my cookie. He licks my cookie. He keeps touching my cookie. And the teacher's like, yeah, because what is the story? It doesn't even make sense. You know, kids narrate lots of things that they're very often unrelated to anything, right? They just tell you, like, the sky is blue and broccoli's green. And you're like, okay, someone touched your cookie. All right, like, go play.
Yeah.
So this girl had told so many people about the offense, but she was using the word cookie. If a young child looks at you and says, someone's touching my vulva, eyes will open. People will pay attention to that. This is an important word. Cookie, flower, no, special spot. It's not a special spot. It's not special. So how I work with parents, because we have so many parents from religious backgrounds, parents with their own trauma, so they never had a conversation about it. How do I say that to my kids? How do I talk to my kids about this stuff? My big message is always, our body has functions, right? What is the function of the eye, right? So someone will say to see. Okay. What is the function of the ear? To hear. What is the function of the mouth? To talk, to consume food, to communicate, right? What is the function of the elbow? It's a tool. It helps us bend our arm so we can eat and grow plants and all the things we need to do to move our body, right? What do your breasts do? Nobody ever has an answer for that. Women do. The men in class don't. It's to feed babies, right? So we just go down the whole parts of the body. Every part has a function, right? What is the function of your penis? It is to urinate and for intercourse. It's just a fact. It's not that exciting. We don't give nicknames to elbows. We're not like making up cutesy names for the elbow. It has a function. We're not making up cutesy names for an eyebrow. It's just an eyebrow. Why are we saying wee, pee? I don't know.
I think this goes back to the very beginning when you were talking about sex as being taboo.
Yes.
And that being part of the culture. I mean, we can talk about that more, but continue.
Yes. If you can't name your body parts, you don't even know the function of your body parts. Like, why do women have vulvas? Well, it is because vulvas serve as a closing function to keep out dirt, debris. Our most important areas are for procreating, right? That's how we've made it this far. I think it's helpful for people if you think about caveman brain, right? Like, why did we start to stand? Why did we start to verbalize and make sounds to each other? Everything has a function. So why are we making silly jokes up about the function of procreation or menstruating? It's just a fact of life. And so I work with parents saying, if you can identify the function of other parts of your body, go through the whole body and don't stop and spend extra time on the genitals. It's just a part, just like anything else is a part of the body. And I think that helps people understand, like, oh, you're right. You know, I think the hard part too is that for religious people, and this isn't to say anything about one religion or the other, but 80% of my clients are from one specific religion. And the more you in my opinion, the more taboo something is, the human nature is, A, it's a human need, so I'm going to do it. But B, now I really want to do it. You told me not to do it, I really want to do it. That's how humans are. If you are a teen boy and you are unable to masturbate because you believe you're going to go to hell or you're bad, it's lusting, you're part of the devil, all of these things that we hear. You also can't date until you're older. Then you can date. Before then, you can't think anyone's attractive. You can't have crushes. Definitely don't be alone with the opposite sex, right? You are just so limiting their natural orientations, right? Because that's part of growing up. That's part of maturation, is flirting and understand where you lie in this room full of people and how society works. So if you're keeping people from that and they're very interested in sex organs, because that is the time of life that we start to be interested in it, puberty, right? So you can't touch yourself in any way, even if it's not to orgasm, but any, self-stimulation is inappropriate. You are bad, you are shamed, okay? You have no outlets with peers. You cannot date. You cannot watch anything on TV that's about kissing or, right? You're just so limited. But your body is telling you, go, 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 experience, explore, explore, explore. It's bad, explore. You're just really putting someone in between these two worlds. It's bad, explore, it's bad, explore. And then mom says, hey, can you give your sister a bath? And you're 14 and the sister's 3. This doesn't mean that the child is deviant or the teenager is bad or sinful or is going to grow up to be an adult offender. But they are interested in vaginas at this point. They are interested in vulvas. They are interested in parts of the body and things that they don't really understand. And they have this drive. So they can't be alone with anyone else, but they can be alone with their sister in the bathtub. Right? So this is how fondling occurs. It's human interest in nature, right? You aren't allowed to date someone, but you're allowed to change your sibling's diaper, right? It doesn't make the kid bad. It makes them hungry for education. It's the same thing as a Good Lives model. It's an inappropriate way to become educated, right? So in treatment, we teach the child and the parent almost every time all the sex ed material because the parent doesn't know either, which is why they didn't share it. And the kid is very often framed as bad, wrong, deviant, devilish. And it's like, I don't know, it makes sense to me. They have no outlet and you're letting them sleep in a bed with their siblings or their cousin. I mean, it's understandable. It is not appropriate. It is not okay. It is not condoned. But it is understandable to me. And we just have the same case over and over and over. Highly religious families. No one says a word about the body. No one says anything. But they are in the role of caretaker and babysitter. It's hard to make healthy choices when you lack education about those choices.